This is a Decentered podcast from Rob Watson. Conversations about community media. Look out for Decentered Media on Twitter and on iTunes, or go to decentered.co.uk. Hello there, Rob Watson here. It's Saturday I think it's the 6th of February, and I've come into Leicester. It's kind of fairly busy actually, but what I want to do is I want to talk about and discuss some ideas that I'm working on at the moment as part of the Leicester Stories project. The Leicester Stories project is being developed in collaboration with DMU and the work I do through Decentered Media. And what it's about is putting together a team of community reporters who can help to tell stories that relate to positive reasons that people might want to complete the census. The census day is rapidly approaching. It's the 21st of March. So what we've done quite quickly is got together a group of people who are going to capture, using social media, short contributions, that's a good word to use I think, from people who are passionate about their community, I suppose, is the approach that we want to take. And it means thinking about how we access and support people who are easily overlooked. There's a lot of work going on in the census from the Office of National Statistics this year. 10 years ago in the 2011 census, Leicester had kind of half a manager working in the area. This year it's got a full-time dedicated manager and 5 full-time dedicated staff for the city alone. So the information that comes from the census is really important for supporting the development of public policy, funding, what kind of support's needed for people in the city, and how and what kind of decisions and choices get made about what we need to plan for. And Leicester's a very diverse space. You only have to sit here for 10 minutes in the city centre, and you'll hear many different languages. Leicester has a high rate of ethnic diversity, cultural diversity, social diversity, and I suppose the census is really an attempt to capture that. But one of the things that would help in this process is that people trust the media that we share locally. And it's often the case, I think, that many people from communities that are easily ignored don't actually trust a lot of our mainstream media, or don't engage with our mainstream media. So people will be watching things on satellite packages or through YouTube or something like that, and they won't be engaging with the local BBC media, the local Leicester Mercury, because it isn't relevant to them and their community, and it doesn't talk about the things that they are interested in or focused on, or kind of provide news that they, and in some cases it goes a lot further than that, in that they're actually antagonistic towards people within certain parts of our community, certain groups within our community. So there's a distrust there, and there's a general scepticism about our media, because it seems remote and it seems detached from local communities. It's getting further and further away. Local radio has been consolidated, so the Leicester Mercury is actually now printed in Derby. What's the Leicester News? Often it's regurgitated from press releases and journalism, they call it. So the idea of the Leicester Stories project is to just investigate and to have a go at bringing something together which is focused on community stories. And this isn't new. We owe a lot of a debt of gratitude to the pioneers of this, and over 10 years ago John Costa with Citizens Eye, a good friend of mine, was instrumental in exploring ideas about how to develop community news, a model of community engagement with news, citizens journalism. It's kind of morphed into something else, but it's the roots really are in people representing themselves, finding their own voice, talking about what it is that concerns them within their community, and not being dictated to by distant news executives and the economic necessity of consolidation in an industry, and an internationally competitive industry, but feet firmly on the ground, rooted in the needs and the interests and the sense of identity and the sense of belonging of people within their neighbourhoods. So community news then is different from journalism, because in journalism you're looking to investigate, where I suppose with what Howard described community news is that you're looking to facilitate. It's not about, it might lead to this, there might be elements of this which at some point it does need to be passed over to a well-trained journalist and an organisation that can support breaking news and investigative news. But you're operating at a level where, it's kind of the things that we take for granted, the everyday, the pavement level life, of who we are and how we interact, what's going on, what we value. And it's not about professionalising anything. I think news sometimes, and the discussions about news, are wrapped up in self-interest from professionals, and there's a projection of needs, which is that we must have news in a certain way, but actually most people want a friendly approach. They want companionship, they want a sense of belonging, they want to find out and understand the things that are relevant to their local neighbourhood and the people that their network and the people that are like them. And that's quite difficult to put together sometimes, because it's not sexy, it's not it doesn't win any awards, but it's the day-to-day stuff that keeps a community together. So the idea of the Leicester Stories project is we're focusing on reasons that people would be positive and have a positive reason to fill in the census. And the idea is that if you don't make yourself heard within the census as an individual or as a group, then any needs that you have for support and for recognition won't get taken up. So it's about a sense of pride in our identity and who we are, and that's expressed in many different ways. And in a place like Leicester, that comes through very, very clearly, that people do actually have a sense of pride of being from Leicester, of being British, but also the identity that people have been brought up with, or their parents have been brought up with. That's important and strong as well. So it's a kind of mixed, integrated sense of identity. And I suppose what we're trying to do with the community reporters approach is to unpick that a little bit and allow people the space to express that safely. Now, one of the crucial things about this process is that we're not just offering our opinions, and we're not just inviting opinions either. There's enough opinions out there in the world, and mine have been circulated quite freely through Twitter and social media, like many people do. However, there's an accountability to this. So what makes it respectful to other people? What makes it fair? What makes it something which is engaging and makes a positive contribution, rather than maybe something which just pulls the lid off something and pokes around and finds out where the dirt is? Actually, there's an important job for journalists and news organisations to do that, but there's also an important layer below that, which is about people telling their own stories. And one of the approaches that you take as a community reporter, and this is what we kind of hope to develop, is that you're not necessarily looking at people taking antagonistic positions. You're looking at people opening up a space where you can discuss and talk about why and how things matter to you and what your journey has been like. And that needs a different kind of mindset. It implies that you have to listen to people in a different way. You have to spend time with people. You have to be respectful of people. And what you see first is not necessarily what you're going to get later when trust is built up. And some people will not talk to people in news media organisations. There's a reticence that you don't want to wash your dirty linen in public kind of thing, and that's perfectly understandable. But that doesn't help us sometimes, because any problems and issues that could be supported and could be helped with don't get the help and support that they need. So it's about building trust, and it's about talking the same kind of language. And I come from an academic background. I can talk in jargon terms very easily, and it's about trying to pull that back a bit from talking in ordinary language of what it means to talk to people as you walk around. And the reference points can be very different. What you assume to make sense from one cultural tradition might make no sense from another cultural tradition. So the challenge, I think, and the exciting part about the project is that we're going to not necessarily break new ground, but we're going to revisit some things that we've looked at previously and done work around this in the past. But we're going to kind of see if we can, if the climate is a bit more receptive. Has the lockdown made us reconsider what the needs are? And one of the things we've certainly recognised here in Leicester is how the differential impact of public communications, so around health care communications, has had a different. The pandemic communications, the pandemic itself has had a big effect on people from BAME backgrounds. If you're black, if you're Asian, from an Asian background or a black background, you're affected because you're more likely to be affected by poverty, by living in social deprivation, by low levels of more challenging environments for education, lower English literacy skills, and the assumptions that are made is that you can follow instructions. And I think one of the things we want to try and get into is the idea that it's not about instructions. It's not. We're not following the behaviourist model. This is an alternative to behaviourism. We're not giving people instructions or nudges. This is about guidance. This is about people exploring and learning for themselves how they will engage with the civic, social priorities of a pandemic or a census. So it's got implications, I think, for a wider approach to public and civic communications, that the lessons from this, I think, are valuable. Hopefully I've explained this reasonably well. If you want to get in contact, you can get in contact with me via Decentered Media. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Decentered Media. You can email me, robwatson@decentered.co.uk. The website is decentered.co.uk, and I'll post more of these vlogs and some blogs as well about the information associated with the Leicester Stories project. The Leicester Stories website will be leicesterstories.uk. It's not been built yet. I've got a lot of work to do on that next week, with any luck. And we're going to be sharing the content through the community radio stations in Leicester. So it might not be directly to the public that we initially share our content. It might be through, we've got to curate content for the radio stations, and we've got to make sure that it's compliant with the Ofcom broadcast code, and that we're using the Impress independent media regulator standards. We need to work towards them, just to make sure that people have confidence in what we do and how we do it, and that people know if there's an issue with it, where they can find out more. So watch out for it. What Leicester Stories will be on Twitter and Instagram, Lec Stories, Leic Stories, and the website, as I said, is leicesterstories.uk. So yeah, okay, a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Hopefully it makes sense. Give me a shout if you've got any thoughts or you want to help out in any way, and as soon as I get more information and we get the reporters up and running and we're making a bit of content, you'll see that go out on social media as well. But until next time, thank you. You've been listening to the Decentered podcast. I'm Rob Watson. If you want to find out more information, contact me on Decentered Media via Twitter or go to decentered.co.uk.